We
We are.
are live. Hey, everybody. This is Mike Small. I am the host of the Killin' Me Smalls podcast. I work with the Painted Lines, which is a fabulous network. You got to check it out, thepaintedlines.com, as well as on YouTube. And really, really excited to welcome my partner as we're kicking off this great podcast called Ballin, my man Dylan Davis, Double D. Dylan, why don't you tell the folks about yourself?
I'm the host of the Faithful Fanatics podcast. It's part of the Painted Lines as well. You can find it on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Faithful Fans. Spelled with PH, obviously. Just graduated from Kutztown University, sport management major. So want to get into the radio business. So this is what I'm here for. Philly 4 for 4. So as you can see, I know we're a Phillies podcast, but I'm a little eagled up behind me, but yeah, excited to work with Mike and see where we can get this going.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So I've been doing this for a while. I used to produce and sometimes host, but did the player features for the Dean Smith and Mac Brown TV shows in the early 90s at the University of North Carolina. I was a sports anchor in Eastern North Carolina. I was a radio host in Charlotte, covered the draft and some other fun stuff. And before that, I was an intern at Prism Sports, which was when all you kiddies before you were born. That's what CSN Philly used to be. So yeah, man, I'm really happy to be getting back into this, having a lot of fun. The guys at the Painted Lines are fantastic.
Yeah.
And we have a great platform to just do a lot of things. But our focus is Phillies baseball, spitballing. And what we want to do is tackle some topics. We're hoping that we get some guests. There's a few guests that we're trying to line up. We're hoping that people will, as they discover us on YouTube, we're going to have a set time. It may vary. Actually, I shouldn't say set time. It may vary based on the Phillies schedule.
Right.
We want to make sure that we can. Yeah, absolutely. We want to make sure we can talk about the goings on and where the team is. And so you know what? Why don't we start there? Where is this team right now? They got off to a wretched start. They had to deal with the Marlins coming in and possibly infecting the locker rooms, and they got going. The offense has been fantastic. The other side, not so much, except for Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler.
You want me to start, or you?
Come on in, man. Where do you think this team is?
All right. So I've been on record on my podcast on social media before coming into this season. If you go back to last season, the lineup was always there. And then Kutch went down. They were in first place through 60-some games at that point, which is the length of this season. So, you go into this lineup, you get a healthy Andrew McCutchen back, Bryce Harper in year 2. You bring in Didi Gregorius, who has been phenomenal so far. JT Realmuto.
Yeah.
Bryce Harper's on an MVP level right now. Mm-hmm. So as a lineup perspective, you would think this team has what it takes to compete. They have a nice 1-2 punch. Now, here's what I want to get to. We're definitely going to talk about the starting 5 because the back end of it is just – it's so hard to tell if it's good enough to compete. But they have Nola, they have Zach Wheeler, and not a lot of teams have deeper than two good starters. Like the Nationals last year, and I guess you could throw out the Astros with Verlander and Greinke and Garrett Cole last year. There's a few teams that have 3 to 4 good pitchers. Most teams have a solid top 2, which the Phillies have. But I've been saying before the moves, which we'll get into, the bullpen was going to hinder this team. It was just going to get in its way, and it got in its way more than I could have ever predicted. Yeah. Maybe historically bad. Everyone's ERA. Hector Neris, who you thought would be maybe the only solid piece of this bullpen, was posing like close to a 10 double-digit ERA. So Clentax made some moves, which I'm going to throw this to you. I asked you this the other day. One, obviously, where are you on this team? Are they good enough to compete? And are these moves with Hembry, Hale, and Workman moves that make them playoff competitors, or are they just placeholders right now?
I've got a lot of confidence in Joe Girardi, and I know that I've talked to some people that are big Yankee people, and they've assured me that one of the strengths that Girardi has is dealing with the bullpen. Now, it's really, really difficult in a shortened season to know that you've been able to nail the bullpen and have that set up correctly. What he's really good at is defining roles as it goes forward. When everybody's given up 3-run home runs every time they come in, it's very difficult to define a role. Workman has looked awful, but he is a major league closer and he's pretty good. Hembry's looked great, and Hale hasn't had a chance yet, I don't believe. And
Yeah.
but he's decent. He's a major league pitcher. You know what? They've got 3 major league pitchers that they've added to a pathetic bullpen. So right now, I think Adam Morgan looks pretty good. Hector Neris, I think when you get him out of the closer role, you give him the 7th inning and get him, it looks like he's given him a couple days to get his head together. I think he's going to be fine. Tommy Hunter's been decent. And I think Hembry's been terrific. Workman, I think, will be fine. I think I have confidence in Joe Girardi to pull this thing together. But I'm going to come back to a comment that you made before about the top 5 pitchers. I think Jake Arrieta looked great last night for 5 innings. Yeah. And it's if they can get that out of him he's been a colossal disappointment from a Clentech free agent perspective. Yeah. He's been terrible. He complains a lot. He wants out of the game a lot. He can't go more. He throws a ton of pitches. He's my least favorite Philadelphia athlete.
He threw a ton of players under the bus.
Oh, I can't stand him. But if you can get him to have the movement that he had last night on the ball and be able to get those ground balls and be able to give you 5-6 good innings in the number 3 spot. I know Spencer Howard has not looked good, but I have got a lot of confidence in him. I'm going to give him some time before I start to panic about him. And, Zach Eflin's decent. I thank God Nick Pivetta is not in a Phillies uniform anymore. And I do think there is a possibility that Vince Velasquez is a decent reliever.
Here we go.
I'm going reliever. I'm not going.
No, I know. I'm so glad you brought this up, though. So
I'm thrilled he's out of the rotation.
I'm so glad. Well, there's 2 other bullpen pieces right now. Jojo Romero's up. Blake Parker.
Yeah.
We both have a goose egg in the ERA, even though they've only pitched one time each. But I'll take it.
Yeah, and he looked pretty good.
So now I want to shift gears to Vinny with you because you brought it up. So look, you said
rain delay.
You were so happy to see Nick Pivetta out of a Phillies uniform.
So happy.
I'd rather see Vince Velasquez out of a Phillies uniform. And I'm so over the project, and it even reared its ugly head the first start he pitched this season when finally it's like, oh man, he might have Joe Dillon might have his stuff, might have Vince Velasquez pitching well. And he's got his changeup working and his curveball working, and he's pumping 95. Oh, well, let's see. The Phillies go up 4-0. Bryce Harper hits a 3-run home run in the bottom of the first, and Vince Velasquez gives it right back in the top of the second. The first start. But so here's my thing. I will give him the benefit of the doubt, and I will agree with you on the fact that he could be he can't make the bullpen any worse. That's what I want to get. That's what I want everyone to realize.
Well, you start him as a long man, right, and let him work into a rhythm. Right. So they do need a long man, and he's a guy that can go 3, 4, 5 innings, obviously, because he's already stretched out. And then if he starts to show some consistency, give him a role.
My thing with him is apparently he's never accepted being a bullpen piece. He's never gotten.
Neither would Pivetta.
Right. So if he can buy in to becoming a bullpen piece and saying, you know what, I need to do what I can to help this team win and make the postseason, then he could be a serviceable bullpen pitcher. But until he embraces that role, I hate to say this, it's just every time he's out there, he's like a head, he gets in his head, he gets in his own way every time he's out there. And if he can't embrace his role, he's got no shot in this bullpen.
I look back on it was actually Clentech's first trade, if you recall. And I thought it was brilliant. I thought, you know what? A team that's going to be terrible does not need a closer. Trade Ken Giles and get a bunch of good prospects for him. I thought it was a great idea. Yeah. Ken Giles hasn't been good. So it's not like you're really lost. I mean, he's not been good.
Ken Giles won a World Series.
He's in Toronto now. He doesn't even pitch. He's hurt. I'm fine with that. But you would have thought between Mark Appel, who was a number 1 pick overall out of the league, Velasquez, we know what he is. Then there was, do you remember the other guys? There was Anderson, who, hung out for a little bit. I don't remember the other 2 guys, but it hasn't been an effective trade either way. And Velasquez was the last piece. Now, if you remember Pivetta, I think Pivetta came over. He was the one for Marlon Byrd, right? Or was he Jimmy Rollins? I think he was Marlon Byrd.
Was he?
Was he Rollins? We can, We'll have our Cracker Jack staff look that up later. But either way, I thought it was, the fact that he made it to the majors and had great stuff, the fact that you're able to get that for one of those guys, it was a shot. It was one of Ruben Amaro's last moves. But the guy's got no heart. I called him the Tin Man. I mean, he and Velasquez both have all the stuff in the world, but you need to have courage to be a pitcher, and neither one of them had it. And I'm glad they're both gone. Well, at least out of the rotation in Vinny's case.
But I guess to go back to your first question, is this team good enough? Like, where are we now? Are they going to have to compete? I don't know how you can look at this division and say no. I mean, just before the Nationals win, they were in last place and they were only a game out of a playoff spot. The question is the bullpen going to be good enough down the stretch in the second half of the season? And I think Klentak did a good job of making the moves when he did. Obviously, the deadline's coming up soon anyway, August 31st, I believe. But he made the moves early ahead of time within the first third before the halfway mark of the season to give them enough time to come over and get the Phillies back into a playoff race. I think when you had the lineup that the Phillies have, especially with a DH, they're a lineup built to compete. They're going to get – every night they're putting up 5, 6, 7 runs. 5, 6, 7 runs should win you a lot of ball games.
The offense has been great. It's been better than I thought it would be. It's been consistent. It's great. McCutcheon's finally coming around. He had a slow start. Hoskins looked pathetic. He's got about a 5 or 6 game hitting streak right now. He looks pretty good. Harper, like you said earlier, is having an MVP year. JT Realmuto, which we will get to soon, is having a phenomenal year. 9 home runs and is the best catcher in baseball, and it's not even close. Alec Baum, or as he was called yesterday by one of his team, by Arrieta. Arrieta called him Baum, but it's Bohm. Alec Boehm's been fantastic, and he's shown that he's a major league hitter, struggling in the field a little bit. Segura is very streaky, has been very good. Didi's been terrific. It's been a really, really good offense.
Right.
Nolan and Zach Wheeler, they paid a lot of money too. He's been great.
Don't forget about Barrels. Absolutely.
And, I love Nola. If Arrieta can give him something, I think Eflin's decent. And if Spencer Howard comes around, if the bullpen, there's a lot of ifs, but I don't see any reason they can't be in it at the end. I mean, I think the Braves are a far superior team, but other than that, I think they're better than the Mets. And I think, with Strasburg out for the season and Scherzer struggling, I think they're better than the Nationals.
Well, the Phillies are currently losing 1-0 going into the top of the third right now against the Nationals. But the Braves thing is intriguing to me because, I agree, but at the same time, it's like I don't know how, because when you go lineup by lineup, the Phillies, I'm not saying the Phillies have a better lineup than the Atlanta Braves, but it's pretty close. And the Braves don't have a good starting 5.
Yeah, but their top 3 have been pretty good. Especially Max Fried he's stifled the Phillies a couple of times. And Acuna's barely played, and he is one of the best 3 or 4 players in the league. I think they're good. I just had to pull this up to see how far off we were. I'm trying to get the bullpen ERAs here. So if you get the ERAs, let's see. Vinny right now is going to be in the bullpen. Is at a 7.62. Hembry, who we just brought over, is a 5.25. Let's see. Well, remember, Hembry has a good ERA, and he got blown up, gave up 4 runs to the Phillies in 1 inning, and that right before he got traded. So take that out. He's got an ERA of around 2.
Right. Tommy Hunter is now down to a 4.35. He's actually really turned it around in the last couple of outings.
Yeah.
Let's see. Adam Morgan's a 3.86. Jojo Romero's a 0. Blake Parker's a 0, but they haven't had a lot of work. And then Hector Neris is a 9.95. So, I guess that's just kind of where I'm at. I know our first episode, I'm just trying to give our viewers just a kind of feeling of where, I don't know, I guess we're at this point in the Phillies team, Phillies season, because they don't know our opinions yet. But I think if the bullpen can get their average ERA down to that 3 to 4 level, and you get a high 2 in Nola and Wheeler, the runs are going to be there. I guess that's just kind of where I'm at, and I can't see this team not competing come September, late September.
I'm optimistic. We've had a lot of opportunities not to be. I mean, if this bullpen wasn't as trash as it was, they'd be in first place. I mean, if you look at the amount of games that they lost leads late in the game, it's a joke. And I think that, I do think, look, I think Clintek's awful. I think he's a terrible GM. But I actually think these moves were pretty good. They're not going to miss Pavetta. They traded a 25-year-old minor league bullpen piece that could be pretty good. And people are saying they gave up a lot for these guys. They may have, and I don't know how good Workman's on the last year of his deal. But you know what? They had to compete, and they needed this to compete. I mean, I'm embarrassed for them that they didn't think about it before the season.
Yeah.
But
Look,
I actually am very optimistic.
To those people that said like the future reliever that you mentioned.
Yeah.
My answer to that is, what did you sign Bryce Harper to that mega deal for? What did you go out and trade JT Realmuto for? What did you go out and get Didi Gregorius for and Andrew McCutcheon? Because you tried to tell your audience, your fan base, that you're in a win now mode. You went out and gave Zach Wheeler over $100 million to be the number 2. Okay, so you're kind of win now. So I guess I'm just at the point of, go ahead, take the reliever. But
the problem is the owner, was talking about stupid money last year, and they gave Wheeler a strong contract this year, and all of a sudden has gotten cheap. He won't go over the luxury tax. He won't get, if they were willing to go over the luxury tax, they'd have signed 2 or 3 good relievers. JT Realmuto would have been signed already. And we'll talk about that, I know. And we'd be in pretty good shape. But I think, what Middleton's done is he's put one foot in the pool and he won't put the other one in yet. And I don't know if it's because, he's being cheap. I don't know if he wants to see if the team's good enough to contend before he goes for it. But to me, you're either in or out. And I think he's straddling the line right now.
It bothers me because I guess we'll segue now. Okay.
Yeah.
JT Realmuto.
Yeah.
You gave up Sixto Sanchez for JT Realmuto coming up now. And aren't you so glad that we went to arbitration with him for what was it, $2 million? That's what the arbitration was for?
I don't recall the number, but he did not get what he thought he was going to get for sure.
Right. And now what I think happened was, now in the COVID world, Clintek was thinking, now that this is going on, I'm not going, like, the free agent market that he's going to hit after the season isn't going to be the same market pre-COVID.
Right.
So he figured, go ahead, let him test the waters. He's not going to get the money he wants out there, so I'm not going to give him that money now. And it was such a stupid move, because now the best catcher in baseball is raking. What's he got? 8 home runs? Let's see. I have 8 home runs, 22 RBIs, a 960 OPS, 294 batting average, and like we just mentioned, he's the best catcher in baseball behind the plate.
And he's got a couple stolen bases. Don't forget that from a catcher, which is crazy.
Also, your $330 million man absolutely loves him. And doesn't it speak something to you when Bryce Harper, before the season starts, is screaming in an empty ballpark, sign him? A home run celebration is Bryce going like this to JT. Like, why? One of my co-hosts said this on our Faithful Fanatics podcast. Why are our stars not catered to in Philadelphia?
It's a good question. Some would say they're catered to too much on the Sixers side, but that's another discussion. I think with JT, look, I don't know what's going on, but this is my guess. And you can tell me I'm crazy or not, but I think the Phillies are trying to pay JT top catcher money, and I think JT's trying to get top player money. And I think there's a big gap between that number. And my guess is that the Phillies have said, okay, go get as much as you can. And, and they think that he's going to get top catcher money. And then at that point they can match it or beat it. A team like the Los Angeles Dodgers, that's got more money than they know what to do with. I mean, he might as well just try on a jersey for them right now. There's no question that the Dodgers, the Yankees won't do it because they have Sanchez, but there's no question the Dodgers can do it and probably would want to do it. I don't understand it. That's the only thing I can think of. Um, unless, I don't think there's been anything reported that JT's unhappy or doesn't want to sign. It seems like a great situation for him. So that's the only thing I can come up with.
No, I think he loves it here. I think he loves his teammates. I think he loves playing for Joe Girardi. He loves the fans. I'm stuck on Clentak's comments from when COVID started going on.
Yeah.
And because he came out and made a comment about how, the climate has changed now in a COVID world. And that bothered me because that's when, to me, I made the assumption of what he's doing. And that's the market is going to change after this season. So whatever JT thinks he's getting per year, like I'm just throwing out a number. Let's just say he thinks he's getting 20 a year, right? That wouldn't be – if he would have got that before COVID, that won't be the market now. Now the market might be 13, 12 a year. I'm just throwing out numbers.
I think that's what Clintek thinks. I agree with you. But I don't – I mean, Clintek, that's a bad miscalculation because there are teams that are flush with cash.
I don't think it's true at all. I think that's his idea of it. And I just think it's so wrong and it's so stupid. And now with the way he's playing, and basically him and Harper at the 3 and 4 have been what is keeping your team afloat right now, pushing for a playoff spot. And his asking price is just going up, up, up. Right. And you dug yourself in a hole. And you are going – and I'm going to say this on our first episode. He will lose the fan base if JT Realmuto is not in a Phillies uniform next year.
Oh, I'm going to disagree with you. He's already lost the fan base.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's been done for a while. But no, listen, I think we're on the same page there. I think the next thing that we need to think about, though, is not free agency, the trade deadline. You brought it up earlier that it's on August 31st. They did acquire some bullpen pieces. There is a rumor that Josh Hader, the great closer and reliever for the Milwaukee Brewers, could be on the market. They want a lot for him. They want a lot for him. I don't know if they reinvest into the bullpen. I think they're probably going to see what these three pieces lend and if they're able to make that work. I don't think they have any other offensive issues that are holes that need to be plugged in. I don't think they'll go for a third starter because they've got so much money in Arrieta and they're high on Howard, and Eflin's been pretty decent. So I don't know if they're going to do anything.
I saw Michael Gibbons has been connected to the Phillies. And NBC Sports Philadelphia released an article yesterday. I forget if I sent it to you or not. That I don't know if there's an actual link or it's just an idea or a rumor that the Phillies are targeting Starling Marte from the Diamondbacks.
I did see that.
Field. I think, listen, Roman Quinn is a great asset to have. He's probably the fastest player in the MLB. But he's got clear issues in the field right now, and he doesn't hit consistently. I like Adam Hazley a lot. He hasn't seen a lot of the field this year. So if you can bring in a nice bat I think he's a 2-time Golden Glover in Starling Marte, that even just takes his offense to another level. So that's something I'm interested to see. Bullpen, I don't really know where else he's going to add in the bullpen. I mean, you already have, 3, 5, 6. I mean,
I think a lot of it depends on Workman. I mean, if he's as bad as he's been the first couple outings, then they may go look and try to get a closer. Marte's a really good player. I just don't know if you want to invest, what you need to invest to get him. When, you're still – I mean, look, I agree with you about Roman Quinn being far from perfect, and I do have some belief in Hazley. But, you've got a super sub in Goslin who can play out there, until somebody gets hurt. I don't know if I would invest a lot there personally.
The article also had mentioned that he would be under contract for next year also. So it wouldn't be a rental right now.
No, I agree, but they'd have to give up a lot to get a guy like that. And when you look at what they've done to their system recently, you take Baum and you take Howard. I mean, does anybody want Mickey Moniak? Probably not. What's out there? So right. I'm skeptical of being able to get a player like that. Let
me throw you this name because I know you had mentioned they have a lot invested in Arrieta, Eflin. Yeah. They're not going to give up on Spencer Howard. I wouldn't either. But Eflin would be my odd man out if you did make a move for another rotation piece. Dylan Bundy from the Angels. He's got under a 3 ERA or around a 3 ERA right now. The Angels are not playing up to their expectations. I feel like the Angels could be I'm not saying World Series, but they can compete right now with Rendon and Mike Trout and the lineup they have, and I think they're underperforming. So I think you could see them being sellers, not buyers at the deadline. He's a name being floated around. So
good name. I mean, he's been inconsistent, but when he's on, he's dominant.
Yeah.
He's a big strikeout guy. I know that they had some interest last year in Robbie Ray, who kind of fits that same profile, big strikeout guys, but very inconsistent, good arm, electric arm. I just, when I'm tracking this thing, and I don't mean to sound negative, they've got to figure out what they're going to do with Realmuto. I just don't see him adding anything financial into the lineup right now. If they're not signing Realmuto, they're scoring 5-6 runs a night.
Right.
They just put some money into the bullpen. The starters, they put a lot of money into Wheeler, and Arrieta's been up and down. But I just, unless something happens, I don't see them doing much other than maybe adding some bench. I know it sounds frustrating because we like the transactions, but
yeah. I'm with you. Listen, Starling Marte, I would love to have him. I agree. If the asking price is too high, turn it down, obviously. But I think just another back end rotation guy is kind of where my head's at right now, because I think if you went out and got a Robbie Ray, a Dylan Bundy type pitcher to pair with Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler with the lineup and a reworked bullpen, now you're talking about a Phillies team that can really, really compete. Right now, I mean, besides Nola and Wheeler, you're trusting Jake Arrieta, a young Spencer Howard, Zach.
Remember, Arrieta's $25 million come off the books next year, because if they sign him, I will personally drive to Citizens Bank and punch Clentek in the face. I can't stand that guy. I mentioned that, didn't I? But that money's going to come off the books next year. And right, if they can get a guy, kind of like you mentioned with Marte, a guy who's under a reasonable contract, and then you're going to slide him into that spot, that might make sense for sure.
Right. I forget. I had a question for you. The infield. That's another thing to touch on. So you see Joe kind of flip around. I know Segura was fair for a little bit. Kingery hasn't been himself since getting over coronavirus. Well, maybe that is himself, and he just overperformed last year. I don't know the answer to that. But
he's showing signs of life, though. The last couple games, he's ball hard. I'm a believer in Kingery. Not as a superstar, but I think he's decent.
Yeah. So my question to you is, I feel like I see Joe with the Phillies' defensive struggles, because we have seen them rear their ugly heads this year.
Times, yeah.
Would you like to see Joe Girardi cement his infield, like Didi's his shortstop, his everyday shortstop, Gene's his everyday third baseman, so on? Like, I feel he flip-flops. Gene plays third, Gene plays second. Didi plays second, Didi plays shortstop. Would you like to see him cement his infield as a everyday lineup, or are you okay with the rotating?
Well, I think it comes down to a couple things, right? You've got two young players in Bohm and Kingery that you think are going to be pieces for you in the future. If you make Bohm a DH right now, unless you plan on trading Hoskins, which certainly is a possibility, you really got to give him the confidence and let him play a lot of days and just get better. I mean, evidently he's gotten a lot, even though we've seen some struggles, evidently he's gotten a lot better than he was in the minors at third base, and will continue to get better with more playing time. But, there might be nights where you have Arrieta pitching and, there's going to be a lot of ground balls and hard ground balls. So maybe you stick Segura at third for those nights. And I think with Kingery, sometimes he's going to play center. I like the idea of leaving him at second base every day, until he starts to hit. Like I said, he seems to be breaking out of it. But if he starts to hit, I say just leave him there and let Segura be kind of the super sub.
Well, Rhys Hoskins hit his third home run of the year to tie it at 1.
Now?
No, it ended the third. It was at the top of the third.
How about that?
Homer to left on the first pitch, which I like to see, because we see Rhys all too often take the first pitch fastball down the middle. And he does have a great eye, but look, whenever he came, and maybe that wasn't the real Rhys Hoskins that came into the league and hit 17 home runs in a month,
Yeah.
month and a half, whatever that was in the home run derby, was tearing it up. Maybe that wasn't the real Rhys Hoskins. Maybe it was. Once they started adding swing trajectory and everything, that's when I think you saw Rhys take a little.
Gabe Kapler screwed him up. There's no question in my mind. Captain Coconut Oil totally screwed him up. And by the way, I'm so glad he's gone. I love Joe Girardi. I think Joe Girardi is already, I'm going to give you a hot take. Joe Girardi is already the best manager in Phillies history.
Wow.
How about that? Wow. I lived through, look, I'm the old guy on the podcast. I lived through Danny Ozark. I lived through Ryan Sandberg. I lived through Jim Fregosi. I lived through Charlie Manuel. I know he got a World Series, but they should add 3. Fight me if you want. This is the best manager in Philadelphia history.
Maybe I'll give it to you. But Captain
Coach, talk to me in 5 years, but he is. I mean, day to day, I'm so excited about Joe Girardi. I know that there have been times, but
no, I love Joe.
I think he's the right guy.
And I was not a Gabe Kapler fan whatsoever. However, if the playoffs started today, the San Francisco Giants would be in the playoffs right now, somehow, some way, with this weird season.
And you know what? Gabe Kapler got off to hot starts with the Phillies too. Let's see. Talk to me at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. One more thing that I wanted to touch on, you mentioned it earlier, was consistency with this team. Like, if this team can like, the Sixers right now, they're talking about accountability. Before Game 2 with the Flyers, Elaine Vigneault and I was talking earlier with some people about execution. These were the words flying around. My word with the Phillies is consistency, because I say that because you referenced how they've been so hot, so cold this season. They've given you so much to be excited for, so much to get down on them for. So they come out, they lose the first series to a Marlins team that literally had half their team with coronavirus. They get swept by the Orioles. They blow a lead against the Red Sox when they could have won 5 straight. But then they rip off 4 straight. They beat up on the Nationals last night. This lineup is producing. So if this team can get a sense of consistency down, and again, it all stems to the bullpen, because that's where all the issues come from. If the bullpen and their starters can get a sense of consistency down, the offense is going to be there, and this team, and I'm saying it now, this team is going to make the playoffs, and we'll talk about it in a month from now if they start to be consistent.
Double D, I think this is a playoff team. I agree with you, and I think, it's funny, when you're a Philadelphia sports fan for years and years, you know that there's always one thing that everybody knows, but the team doesn't do it. Eagles getting a wide receiver. Flyers getting a goalie. Thank God they have one now. The Sixers getting a point guard. It used to be getting a center. Now it's getting a point guard, like a real shooting point guard. And for the Phillies, it's getting a bullpen. And hopefully, these 3 pieces will not be the saviors, but they will make it legitimate. And I have confidence in Girardi and Brian Price that they will.
I hope so, but hold on. I know we're a Phillies podcast, but did you just start a little dig in there at 2.5?
2.5 is not a point guard. 2.5 is the number 4 man. Remember, I do love Simmons.
Okay.
I
just want.
We don't have to go there right now.
No.
But until 2.5, Jack's a 3. He's a power forward. I'll give him point forward. Okay.
I can handle him as point forward.
Okay.
Now we'll talk Sixers another time, but
yes, we will. It's been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, I think this was a good first episode for everyone watching and everyone that's going to watch this episode. Just
tell everybody how they can follow you on Twitter, because what I want some Twitter action. We're going to retweet this. Have you and your friends retweet it, and ask us some questions, man. Let's get a mailbag. Give us some suggestions, stuff you guys want us to touch on, and please be a part of the show. So, Dylan, how can everybody follow you on Twitter or any of your other social media?
All right, so we have the Spitballin social media account, which is at Ballin Spit, Ballin Spit. I'll tag them all here on this YouTube page.
Tag them all, baby,
for everyone to see. You can follow me at DylanJD98 on Twitter, and you can follow Mike at Real Mike Small on Twitter. Yeah, I'll be posting a lot, keeping everyone updated with the Phillies. Obviously, I have it on our account right now because we're live streaming this episode, but Yeah, I'm excited. I like I'm interested to see how the dynamic between the two of us starts to get going.
Yeah, when are we going to start fighting? We kind of agreed on everything today, but I'm looking forward to fighting with you. You're a big guy, and I like the fact that we're virtual, so you can't hit
Yeah.
me. But I actually think that we're going to start fighting at some point.
Hey man, I'm all for it, but it's kind of hard to fight over the Phillies. I feel like at times. I mean, what as of right now, what's there really to fight
Well,
about?
you could love Jake Arrieta. I mean, we could fight over that, or
Yeah, I
you
think
know,
I think we're both too smart for that. Like
I
that
think
would be like
so.
that would be like you standing up for Vince Velasquez. Then we would have something to fight about.
Very fair point. Touche. All
All right, well,
right. Well, let's wrap it up.
yes, sir. First episode of Ballin Spit, Double D, Smallz. I'm Dylan Davis. He's Mike Small. Thank you guys for listening. And like he said, I'm going to tag all of our Twitter, all of our social media accounts. Please go give it a listen, subscribe. Hopefully I'll get this on Apple Podcasts soon. And yeah, like you said, be interactive, guys. Feel free to comment, join the talk.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to post this podcast on the Killing Me Smalls podcast. So that's already on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. So type in Killing Me Smalls. I've got Eitan Shander tomorrow night to talk a little Sixers. So subscribe to that. And I will also post this podcast on there as well. So I've got about 4,000 subscribers. So hopefully some of them will be able to take a listen and we'll go from there.
Awesome, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, man. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing this with you.
Me too. All right, guys. Go Phillies. Go follow us on Twitter. And hope you guys enjoyed it. And feel free to tweet us any questions, Phillies related or Philly sports related going forward. Have a nice night.